So I began to think about this whole question and the stages of change within the city. And borrowing from Andras Dewani, who coined the bits in parentheses, I began to think about the different stages of change. And I think the first stage is the scary, cool stage of a neighborhood with urban pioneers who are risk oblivious. The second stage is edgy, it's young, arty, alternative, risk tolerant. Then a neighborhood is discovered, and you see investors and people who are viewing hipness as a consumption activity moving in. They're risk aware, and they like a bit of change. And then the final period would be so over it, families, professionals, the risk averse. And I think I've seen this in enough cities and enough countries to see these cycles of change and postulate it as a theory of evolution. What makes a neighborhood or a city, part of a city, enter into this cycle? And I think there are four things. It's that it's affordable. People see a gap in terms of being able to get into a place where they don't have to pay so much rent, that they don't have leisure time to explore alternative ideas, to participate in art or music or something like that. It's accessible to the rest of the city, needs to be connected. It's adaptable. People like spaces that can be easily changed and adapted. That's why storefronts and lofts have been popular for so long. And it's attractive. It's authentic and attractive, a place that people like to change. And that's our headquarters in Shoreditch, which once was in the edgy category. I think it's probably permanently discovered because the housing stock doesn't really move to having families. So I think this is part of a sort of organic process of change. And as designers, I think we need to think about change as being something that we that is managed. And we sit sort of in this diagram at that level, the governance and management level. And I stole this idea of rates of change in cities and towns from Stuart Brand, who wrote a great book called How Buildings and Learn, but have begun to try to adapt it as a lens for our thinking about working in historic town centers and in regeneration projects. And I think that keeping things edgy and keeping a place for evolution in a city is about not really hardwiring at the top of that pyramid. What you want to do is hardwire the city's relationship with nature, culture, and infrastructure, but create spaces that accommodate commerce and changes in commerce and fashion. And so whether a storefront is a bodega or some guys living there making art, or the next year an art gallery, it's still the same space. And you want to create spaces that can go through those transformations in a sort of loose fit model. And thinking about accommodating and creating cities that can both be hip and healthy and safe is about understanding that process of change and designing to that process of change.